Ich war total auf Englisch eingestellt, aber wir können auch gerne auf Deutsch, macht es natürlich auch total entspannt. Tag zusammen. Backups sind Schmerzen, ist immer so mein Einstieg. Und nicht jeder mag Schmerzen. Vielleicht kann ich so ein bisschen was dafür tun, dass es ein bisschen abnimmt. Ja? 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades of Backup natürlich. Ich glaube, mit dem Titel verstoße ich gegen so einige Code of Conducts. Warum dann trotzdem? Ja, weil Backups sind einfach so eine Art Hassliebe. Ja? Das heißt, keiner will die machen. Ja? Aber wenn man sie dann am Ende hat oder so, ist dann doch jeder glücklich. Ja? So dann, es ist vorbei und ich habe doch eins. Ja? Weil wenn man keins hat, dann sieht das ganz schnell so aus. Totales Desaster. Ja? Und totales Desaster wirklich im Sinne von, die Welt geht unter. Ja? Weil, stellt euch vor, ihr verliert von einem Tag die Bestellung oder sowas. Das ist jetzt vielleicht nicht so tragisch im Normalfall in einem Shop. Aber stellt euch vor, ihr verkauft Yachten und ihr verkauft eine Yacht im Jahr und die Bestellung ist weg. Ja, auch schon scheiße. Aber noch viel schlimmer ist, wenn ihr zum Beispiel alle Benutzerdaten oder alle eurer Kundendaten verlieren würdet. Ja?
Sorry, the presentation will be in German?
No, I can do this in English, no problem.
Because maybe you asked someone something in German before. See, someone doesn't understand.
No, Marcel did the introduction in German. No, Marcel did the introduction in German, so that's no problem. I will switch to English. Perfect. So all my practice will pay out. So no backup is a total disaster, right? And I think everybody would agree that backups are important, but when I talk about backups, it's for me backup is more like a process. It's not like only copying data from one position to another one and hope it's there. So maybe it did work, maybe it did not. So when I talk about process in this talk, it's backups. It's more for a complete process, and to this process belongs checking your backup. So make sure that what you backup is actually what you need. So you should check it, of course. And the next step in our process would be encryption. So if you have customer data, personal messages, payment data, whatever, it's not a good idea to keep this stored somewhere and do not encrypt it. So encryption should be part of your backup process. And even when it's encrypted, you should put it somewhere safe. Because if you store your backup on the same machine you're backupping, then if the machine crashes, your backup's gone as well. So maybe not a good idea. So you should put it in some safe place, and maybe some backup server, some network storage, or even the cloud if you want to. So but if you put it in the cloud, make sure it's encrypted. So because it's the cloud, and if you keep your backups locally, that isn't a bad idea, because if only the database crashes and some tables are invalid, you can just use the local backup and restore it. But if you keep your backups locally, very fast something like this happens. So it's getting really messy, and so you should include cleaning up your local backups into your process, right? So you don't take up too much disk space and don't trash your whole system with your backups. And last but not least, it would be really nice if we could monitor our backup process and get alerted if something went wrong. So to really be sure that your backups work. And normally in this talk I have some funny quotes about backups, but early this year I changed the part of this presentation. and I put this slide in. Anybody know what happened to GitLab early this year?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, they thought they had a backup, yeah, but they didn't. And I don't want to pick on GitLab because they were really cool about it and really transparent about what happened to them. But yeah, this is a reminder that we should really check our backups and make sure that the whole process of our backup is in order. Yeah. So nothing like stuff that happened to GitLab is happening to us. And now it's so that we are clear what backup really is. Let's talk about something what we really want to back up. Yeah. And once upon a time, yeah, there was this little tiny web app, and we had to back it up. And that's really easy, right? That's a small tiny app, and we can really easy make a backup. But it evolves, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it's not really the slide I was looking for. I was looking for a slide with a small building and a gas station on top and a police station and something weird on top and then on the side. So because maybe on the outside our shops or our applications look like this, but in the inside they look more like this. And so there's this trend. I would say it's called microservices. Yeah, who's heard of microservices? Yay! He's talking about it. And so yeah, totally easy. Just split up all your stuff into separate microservices, and everything's fine. You get your PHP running on one server and your MySQL on another server, and maybe you have an Elastic search cluster as a service, and maybe some storage and file services and whatever, and maybe some caches. Yeah, microservices, just like we love them. But I don't want to pick on microservices too much because the concept is great, but it comes with a cost. And everybody's telling you, do microservices, split your application into smaller pieces, and everything's good. Not necessarily. So microservices come with a cost, and one of them is data fragmentation. So you don't have anymore a single database where your truth is stored. So you have multiple data stores all over the place, and of course you have to back them up. Another thing is it's a heterogeneous technology. So if you use microservices, you are encouraged to use the best tool for the job. So there's a MongoDB microservice, there's a MySQL microservice, and whatever you could think of. And so it's not, okay, I know my MySQL dump stuff and everything's cool. So you have to know your technology, you have to know how it's backed up and all this stuff. And that can be challenging. And one thing that isn't mentioned as often are responsibilities. And there are two sides of responsibilities. There's one side is the developer, who's responsible for which Microsoft. If you have big teams and stuff like this, is who's responsible for this stuff if it breaks. And the other side is, from a backup perspective, okay, if I create a microservice, who is responsible for doing the backups of this microservice? Is it the developer himself, or is it an ops guy, or whoever, or is it the company where my servers are rented? So responsibilities are quite crazy with microservices. And even if you don't have microservices, the responsibility of who's responsible for your backup is really important. And if you have different people responsible for the software and the backup itself, it can really getting complicated. So For example, somebody's creating some new file storage in your application and deploying it on your server, and the guy who's responsible for the backup doesn't notice, doesn't care, getting informed, and so one time the server crashes and this new file service was never backed up. So data's gone. So not the best use case, I would say. And normally when I see backups in the wild, they often look like this. It's like a 5-line shell script, and it's doing the job, right? It's making a MySQL backup, and it's backing up some files, let's say some user uploads, etc. And this totally works, but it's maybe not the best way to do it, because the shell is no fun, at least for most of the developers. And yeah, that's kind of cheesy, but the real reason is debugging is really hard on the command line with shell scripts. It's not object-oriented and it has no exceptions. So we spend a lot of time teaching our junior developers and whatever to use object-oriented programming and to use best practices and whatever. And nothing of it is available in shell scripting. So not really nice. And another one, it's really hard to test. So yeah, I always have a discussion with some shell guys and say, oh, it's totally possible, and okay, it is possible, but yeah, not for normal shell users like me. And yeah, and that's and a really bad thing about it is it encourages copy-paste programming. So it's like, okay, I have the backup script on this server, and I want to do a backup on another machine, and so, hey, yeah, you guys, you had a shell script for that. Yeah, right, I send it to you. And then you get the email with 5 lines of shell script, and you put it on your server, and then there's your backup script. And do some changes of some passwords or whatever, and then if another guy asks, yeah, how do you do your backups? Yeah, I send you the shell script, and you figure it out. And yeah, that's maybe not so a good solution. So wouldn't it be nice if we have a standardized backup process, and it's working for every project, every microservices, and all our projects, standardized backup, no compromise. So, and what we want to do is we want to configure our backups. So we don't want to handle these MySQL dump, Mongo dump, Postgres dump stuff. We just want to say, yeah, I want to back up my Postgres database, my user credentials are this, go for it. So no more hassle with the technology. And it would really be nice if the backup configuration could be part of our project, so that the same guy that is developing the application is responsible for the backup. So if the developer thinks, okay, I need a new database or whatever, he can just edit the configuration for the backup and can be sure that the new database is backed up as well. So yeah, that would be really nice. So I'm telling you all the time what's bad and what's not good and what we want to have. And yeah, luckily I did something that's called PHPBU that's making magically everything go away. Not really, but yeah, what's PHPBU? It's a command line tool. And it's doing exactly what I was telling before. Yeah? You can configure your backups, and it's taking care of the whole process. Yeah. So the whole process we were talking in the beginning. And so, how do you get it? You can install it, of course, via Composer, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I always would recommend to use the FAR file. And there are 2 ways to install the FAR file. Obviously, you can download the FAR file just from the PHPBU website, but you can also use 5. I don't know who knows 5? Quite a few. 5 is currently the composer for far files, I would say. And the cool thing about it is that it's cryptologically secure. So it's all validated with cryptographical keys. So if you install a far file, you can be sure that's the one the vendor provided to you. Yeah, it's a really cool thing. It's maintained by, I think, Arne Blankatz and Sebastian Heuer, mainly. The guys from the PHP CC. And yeah, you should definitely check it out. So, after you've installed it, let's have a look at what you can do with it. And let's start with copying the data. So, there are 2 ways to configure PHPBU. You can do it with XML and JSON. And for this presentation, I was choosing the XML configuration. It's a little bit more readable, I would say, but yeah, you can argue about that. So it's the default configuration format, so I choose XML here. So what do you need? You need the PHPBU tag, and then you have a list of backups. And in your list of backups, there obviously is a backup, or more of them. And the backup is containing a source and a target. And the source, you just type in what you want to backup, or what your backup type is. In this case, it's tar. So it's just making a tarball of some files on your local disk. And then you specify the location where the folder is located, and then you use the target and say, okay, where do you want to store your backup? And of course, you can use compression to compress your backup. In this case, it's gzip. You can use bzip2, zip, whatever. There are a lot of compressions available. But yeah, as you can see, you can use some placeholders here for your backup name. It's like everything the date command supports. So every letter with percent prefix is working as a placeholder here. So that's basically all you have to do to create a backup of your of a file structure or a directory. Easy as that. So, okay, file structure. Let's have a look at a MySQL. Same thing, source. Source is just a MySQL dump. And then you have to specify some options. In this case, a username, a password, the databases you want to back up, and you're done. And PHPBU will back up your MySQL database. And of course, you have to specify a target as well. So yeah, just in this case, use the bzip2 compression, and you're fine. And if you would execute PHPBU right now, it would print out something like this. So you execute PHPBU on the command line. It's just like PHP unit. It's looking for the PHPBU.xml configuration in your working directory. And if there is a PHPBU XML, it just reads it and executes the stuff that's in there. So just type PHPBU, and then your backups are executed. In this case, and hooray, everything went okay. So here's a list of sources PHPBU supports from the start. It backups MySQL, of course, directory structures. It's Redis backups, Postgres, MongoDB, Elasticsearch, and it makes backup of RangoDB. It's a document-based storage engine. It's really nice. Yeah, so these are the sources. So you don't have to worry about the technologies to make backups of this data sources. PHP takes care of it. You just have to configure it, and you're done. So next up in our process is checking our backup, yeah, to make sure we really did backup the right thing. And PHPBU has something that's called check. and you can specify a check with checking the minimum size. So in this case, PHPU will look if the created backup is at least 100 megabytes in size, and if not, it will let you know that there's maybe something wrong with your backup. And currently, out of the box, you can check for min size, and you can check against previous backups, so you can tell the difference should only be 10% or something like that. So yeah, but we will get to it a little bit later. But you can extend PHPUGDD with every layer, so you can create own sources, checks, and so on and so on. So that's checks. Quite simple, I would say. Next up, encryption. And so let's configure our encryption. So in this case, we're using a crypt tag. We're using OpenSSL in this case, and using a password, a really cool one. And you specify the algorithm you want to use to encrypt your backup, and that's all you have to do. And your backup is encrypted. Right there, you can use OpenSSL configuration files, you can use keys. There are a lot of options for OpenSSL, and not all of them are supported by PHPUGDD, but a lot of them are. So yeah, I think you find the configuration you need for OpenSSL. So now yeah, we have our backup is checked, it's encrypted. So let's move it to a safe location. And yeah, we have to configure this, of course. In this case, I am using Dropbox as an example. All you need to do to put your backups up to Dropbox is you need a valid token and a path where you want to put it in your Dropbox, and you're done. So so your backup is in a safe place, and this is a list of safe places we support for our backups. It's of course Amazon S3, Dropbox, SFTP, FTP, rsync, and some the IBM Cloud soft layer. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, you can use rsync to move the backups in your local network, or SFTP, and of course the cloud services. By the way, there's a feature request for Google Drive integration. If you want to get into open source, go for it. I think this Google API cost me so much time already, so I abandoned this feature request for my sanity's sake. Next up, cleanup. Yeah. So cleanup is a configuration as well. Just use the cleanup tag, and in this case I'm using capacity. So I'm saying my backups shouldn't be greater than 5 gigabytes. So altogether. So if you have 10 local backups and there are 6 gigabytes, then the oldest backup is deleted as long as the 5 gigabytes are exceeded. So you make sure you don't take up too much disk space. And yeah, more like this. And so you can use a cleanup strategy like outdated. You can specify something. You can delete backups older than 14 days or a month or whatever. And you can use quantity and can say, yeah, let's keep 20 backups. And if we created a 21st, delete the oldest one. In PHP 5 there's coming a new one, a new backup strategy where you can decrease the backups you keep over time. So you keep 10 daily backups use 2 weekly, 1 monthly, and 1 yearly, or something like this. But the current stable version is 4.0.9, and it's not available right now, but 5.0 will come, hopefully. So, next stop, alerting. Of course, you have to configure stuff like the stuff that you want to be alerted, and in this case, it's implemented with a logger. And I'm using here's a mail logger, and you can just define the recipients and something like send only on error. So you only get emails if your backup is failing. So if your backup is working, then you don't get an email, and if it's not working, then you will actually receive an email. So the emails will look something like this, at least if everything's okay. If not, the colors change to orange or red or something more alarming. But you get this nice overview what has been executed, especially if you have a configuration file with multiple backups. That's a nice overview of what happened in your daily or hourly or whatever backups. So, what have we accomplished? We are now configuring our backups. We don't care about the technology anymore that we backup. The configuration can be part of our project, so the developer can actually configure the backup as well. If we create the backup and we check it, we encrypt it, remove it and clean it up, and we have some reporting if something's going wrong. So, wait a minute, that's quite cool, but yeah, you maybe have all the configuration that's available, or that's needed for the backup already in your project configuration. So maybe you have already a database configuration or a cache configuration, and you don't want to duplicate the configuration. And as a Mac user, I'm quite stuck in adapter hell. So I thought, why not create adapters for PHP View? And so you can hook into your existing configuration files. And there are different ways you can do this. If you, for example, are using Laravel, or I think Slim is doing it as well right now, it's using .env for your configuration. And so we have this adapter, and it's for .env. Who knows the .env library? So it's a really cool library. You have a file, and it's like an ini file, and it's and that's your configuration, actually, the configuration values. And in your scripts, you only use the .env API to access this configuration values. And so you have all your configuration in one place and can exit it via the .env API in your scripts. Like I said, I think Laravel is doing it, and I don't know, Symfony. I think Symfony is doing it as well. Yes. So for .env, you only have to specify the .env file, and then you can use the .env values in your configurations like this. You only have to say adapter colon my adapter colon, and then the config value you want to use, in this case password. So this is the way you can just hook into your existing configurations. And from the start there are 3 adapters. It's a .env adapter, a native env adapter. So if you store your configuration values as environment variables, which is a really great idea, you should do that, then you can use the env adapter. And there's also a PHP array adapter. So if you use PHP arrays to configure your application, you can still read the file with the PHP array and access your configuration values with this dot syntax. So you say adapter colon my adapter name colon and then foo.bar, and you would get the value of this this array, the value in here. So you remember this guy was not so happy. So let's use PHPView instead. And we configured quite a lot. Yeah, we configured the directory backup and the MySQL backup. We configured some checks and some cleanups, async, and some encryption as well. So that's like if you execute PHPView with -- verbose, you get this nice report, what has been executed and what's failing and what's happening in your backup process. So yeah, maybe the guy looks more like this now. But I think I was nagging about the shell scripting a lot, and didn't address really the problems I had with the shell. So maybe before entering production, you maybe want to do a simulation or something like this, so you don't crash a multi-million-dollar plane or multi-million-dollar data. So PHPView has a feature that's called simulation, and you can call it with PHPView -- simulate. And what this does is it shows you the commands it will execute, but it won't actually execute them. So you can see what PHPView is doing behind the curtain. So if you run PHPView -- simulate, all the commands that PHPView is executing in the background are printed out, so you can have a look at them. In this case, you can see the tar command that's executed, some checking for the size, the Dropbox, and as you can see here, the Dropbox token is replaced with some stars. So even if you configure your backup credentials in a PHPView configuration file, it will never appear in the log files. So it won't appear in the simulation run. Nobody who sees the simulation log or something like this, he will never see the actual passwords or tokens or keys or whatever. They are always obfuscated with stars. So you don't have to worry about this. So you can, for example, there's a JSON log file. You can use a JSON logger, and if something crashes or so the error messages are logged into this log file, but even there the passwords are obfuscated. That's really nice. And yeah, you can obviously see what backups would be deleted. The only problem is I don't know how big your backup would be. In this case, I assume 20 megabytes. Yeah, it's maybe a wild guess, but yeah, I had to do something. So simulation, yeah, right? Don't execute it for real. Just have a look at what would have been done, and then maybe you feel something like this. Yeah, you feel, oh, PHPView is nice and it's doing my MySQL backups and stuff like this, but yeah, I have this big technology there, and yeah, that's not supported from PHPView. You can extend it. Yeah. You can write your own source implementation, your own check, your own encryption, your own synchronize implementation, cleanup, your own adapter, your own logger, quite everything I was talking about. You can write yourself and extend the existing PHPView. So let's have a look at a custom source. So if we have a super special source, we want to do with PHPBU. And to extend, you have to, for the source, you have to, mostly it's interfaces you have to implement. And for the source, there are two of them. It's the source interface and an optional interface for the simulation. So if you want to make your custom source simulatable, so that if you do a simulation, it gives some hints what it's doing in the background, you have to implement the second interface as well. But that's totally optional. You can only use just a source interface and you're fine. So the source interface has two methods you have to implement. It's the setup method, and the setup method is basically you have the configuration values to put in your XML file or JSON file, and the setup message is getting these configuration values and doing something with it. So whatever you want. And of course, you have to implement the backup method. And so that's everything you have to do for your custom source. So let's just create one. We create the class mySource, implementing source. The simulation part we are ignoring for now. And so we have to implement these two methods, setup and backup. And that's quite the skeleton you need. And so let's have a look at the setup method. In this case, like I said, it's you get the configuration values, all the options you defined in your XML or JSON, and you can store them in your local class or object like this. Oh, I have here. So yeah, like this. So you get these configuration array, and the option name of your XML option is the key of the array, and the value is obviously the value. So you can just store them locally, and if you implement the backup method, you have quite a lot of options. You get the as a parameter you get the target, and the target is representing where you have to put your backup. So that's mostly the XML target configuration with some cool features like where should I put it, what's the path name, what's the file name, should it be compressed, which compressor should I use, and then you can print out messages with the result debug. And then anything that bad happens, you should throw a PHPBU app exception. And that's mostly all you have to do. And the last important thing is you have to return the backup status. And the backup status is important because PHP has to know if you already compressed the backup or if you don't. So if you did, it's fine, and if you don't, PHPBU has to take care of the compression. So, like, if the command tar is totally capable of doing its own compression. You would just add another option, and then the directory you compressed is you combined is compressed as well. But other commands aren't capable of compression, so you have to tell PHPBU, okay, is this compressed or is this not? Is this uncompressed? So yeah, it can take care of it if needed. So that's backup, and now we assume we have implemented some cool stuff in our backup method. Let's do a configuration for it. So. We have to obviously make the source code available to PHPBU. So we're using a bootstrap PHP file. In this case, it's phpbu.plugin.php. You can name it whatever you want. And of course, you have to get some auto loading or whatever to make your classes available to PHPBU. In this case, it's the Acme MySource PHP, and then you have to tell PHPBU what you want to do with this with the class, or what it should do with the XML configuration. So you have to register the source you just you programmed, and so you have to register the type source. Have to say, okay, the name is my source, and the class that executes this crazy source is the one we just created, and then you're done. So you have registered your own source and can back up your stuff. And if you use a source name like MySQL, this will throw an exception, because obviously MySQL is already implemented, but you can set a fourth parameter to true, and that's is a force parameter. You can overwrite existing implementations as well. So if you don't like my MySQL implementation, then you can do your own and override it. Yeah. So we registered the plugin, and now we can put it in our configuration. So we have the new source. It's from type MySource. That's the name we registered to PHPBU, and we just give it a name, so it looks a little bit nicer in our log files. And we have to configure some config value we were talking about. That's given to the setup method, and that's nearly everything you have to do to create your own source. And if you execute PHPBU now, it's showing you, hey, you created 3 backups: the tar, the MySQL, and your custom source, whatever you wanted to back up. So the benefits: unified backups for all projects. That's what we were talking about in the beginning. I've said, I can't say this enough, it's the developer configuring the backup. The guy who knows the application knows what he needs to restore it if it crashes. So it's a good idea that the same guys can set up the backup. And it's all about the mindset. So normally developers don't care about the backup. The ops guys are doing this stuff, and they don't care if they create 200 terabytes of data crap, and the ops guys are doing this. But maybe, I would say maybe, if you use an approach like this, the developer is getting more sensitive for backup topics, and so he knows, okay, if I create this bunch of data, I have to restore it, or it has to be available so I can restore it. Yeah. I think that's for us, for our teams, this is working really well. Yeah, it's working okay. So, if anything you take away from this talk, make backups, check your backups, make sure they work, and maybe just somehow integrate them in your daily processes. Like if you set up an integration server, use backups to set up the integration database or something like this, so you make sure your backup is really working. Yeah, it's dangerous to go alone. That's all from me. Questions?
Is there a process to when your tool is running and the backup takes too long, and your cron job or whatever starts your tool again? Is there a process, a mechanism of locking?
Locking, not really right now. So you had to implement this into the sources you want to back up. So if you use MySQL, for example, you have to use the database, log tables, whatever flag to make sure it's locked. But the system itself is not locked. So, and currently there isn't. So if you could start it multiple, you could type in multiple terminals the PHPView command and it won't recognize. So there's no locking currently.
You told us many things about taking backups. What about restoring? So
Yay!
it's nice to have some backups, but in this case, if there's no tool to restore the backup, so I have to know which mechanism
Yes.
is needed. So
You're right.
It would be nice the same configuration because the encryption keywords are there and something.
Yes.
Yes.
So
I'm currently working on a third interface calling restorable, and that puts out the commands you have to execute to restore your backup.
only the commands.
Only the commands, yeah, not completely automation. No.
This would be nice. So,
Yeah, no, it won't be. There are some tools out there that are doing that, and that's totally fine. That's a nice approach. But in my case, when I need a backup, I don't need the whole backup. So I never had the case where I needed the whole backup. So everything was gone. So let's say I only had to restore some tables or some data of some tables, and that stuff is really hard to automate. So
no, it would be nice to get a mechanism to say, okay, I get a state of inconsistence and I want to restore to previous point, so that I could say restore the time
yes,
stamp, and then I get a consistent state of one backup.
yes. That's actually if you're using Laravel, there's a Laravel package for that that's taking snapshots. That's really nice. I'm having a look at that, and it's really nice. But it's
because you have interfaces or backup mechanisms for many stores, database, and if all these data get together, so it would be nice to say, okay, everything has to go back to.
okay. Okay.
So
Yeah, that would be really. But yeah, if I'm getting to implement the restorable stuff, then you will get the commands for all the stuff that's in your configuration. So you can copy all the statements, and then everything should be back to normal. But yeah, that's a little bit more difficult.
is it possible to make MySQL dump with excluded tables?
Yes, it is. So you can do something like exclude table X, use only the table structure of table A or table B. So if you have a log table in your database and you don't want to back up the data of your log table, then you just say structure only and then name the log tables you don't want to get the data in your backup. So yeah, I have most of the feature MySQL dump supports and a little bit more.
Could it be able to MySQL hot copy?
There are actually two MySQL implementation, one with the default MySQL dump and one with the InnoDB backup tool. And so you can use the InnoDB backup tool to create hot backups, yes.
Okay. How about you, Jada? You just talked about full backup, and I just want to do an incremental backup.
Yeah, it's on the feature request list. I would say that's. I think only InnoDB is really supporting the InnoDB backup tool for MySQL at least. Is only supporting the incremental backup, and I did play around with it, but it wasn't really straightforward to configure right now. I have to have a deeper look into this. But incremental backups for file storages or caches would be really hard to implement because the APIs aren't there. So, or I have to implement everything myself, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, not really. Sorry.
Once upon a time, I had the situation we didn't have access to in my MySQL server just over SSH, or I was logging into the SSH, and I made a dump, and I figured out I could make a dump from my machine over an SSH tunnel. So is it possible to make a dump via an SSH tunnel? And in addition, and in a very similar case, I don't know if I recognize it very well. If I make a backup from a file system and I start a backup on my machine, then I'm doing a backup on the same machine. Is it possible to make the backup via an SSH tunnel maybe, or I don't know, to another machine in the same network? Because I don't always want to use Dropbox.
Yes. You can, if you want to create a backup of some remote file structure, you can do so by using rsync. Rsync is used as a sync implementation, so you can move your backups to everything you have access over SSH for rsync. But you also can use it as a source. You can use rsync as a source and can say, okay, I want this remote file structure back up to my local machine. So that originated in some crazy feature request because somebody did all their backups locally and wanted to collect them. So he wrote all the backups with PHPBU, and then another one on a central server that had access to all the servers and was collecting all the backups. So he configured the sources for all backups he created on the local machines then. Okay. So you can, but MySQL over SSH is not possible at the moment. But that's quite a nice idea. So yeah, I'll have a look into that. But yeah, but if you have the ports available, you can also back up remote machines. That's possible, but you have to have access via the port interface. Yeah, I know the feeling.
As a non-Linux user, it was quite a challenge for me. And just one question. Is there a possibility to have, or maybe it exists as a feature request to have a callback? So maybe for success or for fail, that you can implement the callback, maybe shell execution or calling some services.
You can do this with the logger. So the logger is actually event based. So you get events like backup PHPUGDD start, PHPUGDD end, backup start, backup end, check start, check end. So all these events are fired, and you can create your own logger and react to these events like the way you want. So you can run shell commands or whatever.
Oh, cool.
It's totally fine. Any other questions? So yeah, I will stick around. So if you have questions, just talk to me. Thank you again.